think we might have another stream open there. I hope we do anyway. So, okay. So yeah, this is the next stream. We're back. Geo Productions is back. Yes. Yeah. No, basically the internet was dodgy, so it was just kind of crashing out. Heat malfunction probably is. Yeah, it probably was. Um, yeah, I wouldn't put it past it that. Um, we were talking about the Elvis box set and what films are on it. Yeah. So the only ones that I've seen on that box set were Jailhouse Rock, which obviously I talked about in the video. Viva Las Vegas, which I said was very fun, and like unironically quite fun. And then Live a Little, Love a Little, which is one of the later films that he did. And it was sort of when the Hayes Code had sort of passed, and 1968 that film was. So it was in that time when films were getting a bit more open about what they were about, really, and weren't kind of hiding behind euphemism. So in that film, it's very a bit less held back and a bit more mental. Very, there's drugs. Elvis goes on like a psychedelic acid trip, and it's that sequence has to be seen to be believed. And it is a bit more kind of overt, like this kind of sexual undertones are a bit more overt in that film. Um, but it's just a really oddball film, but I kind of enjoyed it. Like Elvis's character was a bit more grouchy, but much different to the like kind of traditional archetype that he just played in all the other films. He just played himself. Here he was bit more of a specific character that you could kind of pinpoint. His love interest was like this woman who was constantly chasing him. It was kind of an inverse of that, and it's almost like a kind of farce. It's like people just walk into her house and she goes by different names, and it's just like it's a bit weird, but you remember it. It's very distinctive, not like a not for. It's not formulaic. I don't think. I don't think it. No. And it's also got a little less conversation, which is one of the best Elvis songs that's ever been made. I think. But yeah, in terms of this box set, let's get it back again. Let's see what I'm actually looking forward to watching. None. Um, but yeah, there's some that I am kind of interested to check out. Like Charo is like a sort of spaghetti western. I know I've not heard great things about it, but I'm just interested to see what it's like. Same with The Trouble with Girls. Like for me, it's like a lot of his later films. These like Live a Little, Charo, Trouble with Girls, Change of Habit as well as not on this one, but it's the last one. These when they were kind of out of the Hays Code era. So these last few films that he did are just kind of they kind of interest me a fair bit. But there's some of the ones I'm just kind of looking forward to in like a funny way, like Harem Scarum. It's just gonna be like, what am I watching? I've seen clips from some of these, and it's just like, what were they on when they made these? Um, it happened at the World's Fair that has a 10-year-old Kurt Russell kicks Elvis in the shin, and then he went on to play Elvis in the biopic that John Carpenter did, which is quite funny. Um, yeah, Stay Away Joe, absolutely dreading watching that. Um, wasn't Harem Scarum Elvis's least favorite film? Probably. No, I think his least favorite. I'm pretty sure it was Clambake, which obviously I covered on I spotlighted on the podcast, which is this is the thing, right? I know people slag off Clambake a lot. It's often touted as one of the worst, like Harem Scarum, like Stay Away Joe, like Kissing Cousins, but Clambake really isn't that bad, and it was trying to describe it to Mr. L, trying to describe what Clambake was about, and trying to describe the madness that happens in it. And it was just one of the it was one of the highlights of the podcast that yeah, absolutely. Because it was just his face was just priceless. Just me describing whatever I was doing. That podcast section was bloody hilarious. I was howling. I was howling until I nearly slipped up. You know which bit it was if you've seen that episode. I love doing that episode, and that was funny. I want to do more crap movies like that. And I promise I will. I will one day watch Dude, Where's My Car? I was almost tempted to watch Dude, Where's My Car? Watch Joe's Apartment. Oh yeah, that's meant to be another so bad it's good movie. Maybe. There's so many films I gotta watch. It's not fair. There's so much I need to watch, and it's just like so many films, so little time, so little motivation in the heat. I don't want to be watching films in the heat. It's just not fun. I hate this heat. Me too. You me, pal. I hate it. It ain't fun whatsoever. But yeah, yeah, I do really enjoy. I do genuinely enjoy watching the Elvis films. Like as I say, they're not great, but it's just like a little mini ship session. I enjoy. You know, it's just fun. Um, it's just unique to me. I think that's what it is. I was talking. We talked about it earlier before the chat the live stream went a bit bust. But it's just finding the things that you enjoy that like nobody like the internet didn't tell me that GI Blue Balls was going to be the best movie ever made. The internet didn't tell me that Clambake was going to be what it was. I created that on this. It's like a lot of the podcast films that we've talked about, like stuff like Ricky Stenicki and Dude, Where's My Car? You know, these films that ordinarily I would just completely write off as just lowbrow crap. I just completely write them off. But because me and Mr. O, we have these jokes about films like that, um, you know, they're special to us, even though I've not seen them. But I want to see these films. I want to see Dude, Where's My Car? I want to see Ricky Stenicki. There's probably some others. Those are the main. Those are the main two. Those two. Um, but I love having that. You know, it's the things that were basically that weren't decided by the internet, but were kind of they just happened. You know, I love when that happens, and it's not a consensus that was decided. You know, and the thing is, even with like critically acclaimed films and stuff like it's when I don't expect to love a film as much as I do, but I love it for very personal reasons. And stuff like Blue Velvet and Goodfellas, for example, they kind of spring to mind as um, you know, they're films that yes, they are acclaimed films, but the reason that I love them as much as I do is how much how personal they were to me, and how much I saw a lot of myself in those two. Yeah, Blue Velvet and Goodfellas, I think of particularly. It's also why I love Ed Wood movies. I was introduced to it by my dad I was introduced to it by my dad, and now they're an in joke for us. Yeah, like stuff like Plan 9 and like Bride of the Monster. You know, it's like yeah, it's like on their own. They're just unbearable. Like I tried watching Bride of the Monster. It was like on a random Thursday evening, like in sixth form. I hated it because it was just as a film, it's crap. But if you have that kind of in joke, or if you have that extra I guess like I'm only biased, but if you have that extra sort of attachment to something like that, you get so much more out of it. I can never take that away. Nobody else can ever take that away, and that's a great thing to have. You know, it's a really lovely thing to have. You know, um, Plan 9 is one of my favorite movies. I have no idea where I'd place it in that favorites list. I can't blame you. It's Plan 9 from outer space. It's one of the movies of all time. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, it's just fun. There's just I don't know, it's just charming about it. But for me, the Elvis movies are that you know these stupid B movie musicals from the 50s and 60s. It's just like where do you come up with some of these? What you know? Plan I was quite to watch the Ultimate Beat movie. Absolutely. Would you consider Freebirds and GI Blue? Stated call it GI Blue balls. That's how bad it is. But would you consider Freebirds and GI Blues to be some of your favourite movies? Ironically, probably. I probably yeah. Freebirds and GI Blues. I probably would. I'm trying to think of anything else. Because the thing is, those two films are bad films, but they're so fun. Whereas stuff like you have this like weird other like tier where it's films like that are good films, but they're not that good. But you kind of love them. Like stuff like Robots and Mr. Bean's Holiday. They're good films as they are. But they're made more of a joke and more like a meme than what they actually are. They're not that good, but they're still good. But I think G.I. Blue and Freebirds probably would be my two kind of epic movies of all time. Like your Plan 9, basically, yeah. I want to get into more movies, especially the silent ones. Absolutely, yeah. Silent movies they're an acquired taste. Silent movies are. I mean, I always say start with Buster Keaton. That's always, I always think they're just a great gateway. But I understand absolutely why they're not for everyone. It's such a different way of. They were such a different way of making. It's just a way different way of like making films. Just the fact that you don't have any sound. Um, yeah. Joe's apartment falls more into that camp rather than a so bad's good camp. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, it's an odd sort of thing, isn't it? I'm a bit tired now. Um, yeah, I think yeah, I'm sure it's like yeah, I say with silent films, it's they're not everyone's cup of tea, but I say Buster Keaton can't go wrong with him if you want to get into them. A lot of spoof movies are like that for me. Simple without much substance, but entertaining. Yeah, I think there's value to film. There is value to films like that. Just as much there is to value to films like The Godfather and you know Shawshank Redemption of 2001. Stuff like that. I think there's especially I was saying it earlier, but like currently with the heat we have been having, I've just not really had it in me to watch stuff. Because I say watch stuff that you need to think about, and that you need to pay attention to. So that's why I've enjoyed watching stuff like the Elvis films recently. It's why I've tried to. I like watching a lot of like shorter films. I've watched a couple of Danny Boyle films because of 28 years later coming out, and his films are relatively short, like only like an hour and a half. So I watched stuff like Shallow Grave, which I loved. I loved Shallow Grave. It was so good. Yeah, that's a recommendation for anyone if you're not seeing Shallow Grave. Yeah, but I'm not because I was possible spoiler for the podcast, but I was almost going to rewatch. In our next episode, we're going to be spotlighting some war films, and I almost was going to rewatch Inglorious Bastards because that's one of the films I want to spotlight. I don't know if Mr. L's here. If he is, I've just basically spoiled one of the bloody spotlights. And if he just rock it, that'd be fine. But yeah, I'm planning on spotlighting Glorious Bastards, so spoilers for that. But it's like I love the film, but rewatching a 2.5 hour war film in this heat, it's just not. You don't have it in you, even if it's a film that you love. When it's a really tall order like that, you don't have it in you. At least I don't. Fox and Obi-Wan as remakes, yeah. It's funny as well because obviously 2005, Doctor Who Series 1 and Revenge of the Sith, they both come out. I was spending my time editing instead of watching movies, and that's hard enough. Yeah, for me, it's like even making. I couldn't. I suppose I could edit, but I've not had it in me to even record videos recently, just because of not just because of the heat, also because I've had over the past couple of weeks because of hay fever. I did have a bit of a bad voice for a bit, for about a week, so I couldn't. Yeah, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't record videos when I was sounding like this, you know. I just couldn't do it, you know. It just yeah. I just generally don't have it in me as much in the summer to record videos. It's more like in the winter months that I tend to do that. I can't see prequel Obi-Wan as anything other than Christopher Moulin Rouge. Yeah, Hugh McGregor. Yeah, yeah, he can sing as well. I am jealous of Hugh McGregor's singing voice because, like, Jesus Christ, man, I don't like being a baritone. It's like it's not. I don't like it. It's not fair. So not fair how he has that. He has that amazing singing voice. It's not fair. Yeah, Moulin Rouge is interesting. I don't think I fully vibe with it. In fact, a lot of Baz Luhrmann films I don't really vibe with. And ironically, all the ones I've seen of his, I've had to watch some form of study. So his Romeo and Juliet film, I had to watch GCC because that's what we did at GCC. We did Romeo and Juliet in English. So we watched the Baz Luhrmann one as like kind of like references and like known quotes and all that stuff. Although we did have to keep getting reminded in class, it's like just a reminder, it's set in the modern day. In the actual play, they didn't have guns and petrol stations and yeah, because apparently former uh, people like obviously former students had clearly written about petrol stations and gunfights and stuff, and that's how fickle we can be sometimes. But yeah, the Romeo and Juliet one I had to watch. The Great Gatsby I watched for like as A level. I did Great Gatsby in English. I had to watch the film again because it's like a revision. I chose to watch it as well, but I don't like the Great Gatsby. I think, admittedly, that I didn't really. The film was kind of crap. I don't really think the film was good at all. When we actually did the book, I yeah, Baz they did the Elvis film. That's the most recent one. When we were studying Great Gatsby. I didn't really enjoy it. It's the text that I enjoyed the least in English lit, just because of I feel like the story was great, but just the way it was written, the way it was written, it felt very artsy fartsy and very style over substance. The way it was written just kind of felt. I probably guess it's pretty sacrilege to a lot like you know literature um consoles, but I didn't really like the way it was written. It felt like it was trying to be fancy in lieu of actual kind of comprehension, you know. But admit what I think is growing on me is the actual story of Gatsby. I think it's very interesting. It's a really interesting story of trying to, the kind of pitfalls of the American dream, trying to reinvent yourself which I felt, particularly going to university, moving away from everything and everyone really that I knew beforehand, and essentially reinventing myself in a sense. There, I've kind of that story has grown on me. I think I find it more interesting. And then Moulin Rouge I had to watch at uni for like one of my film study modules. It was like how like, the use of sound and whatnot. We watched a few films and we watched Moulin Rouge. But I do plan to watch the Elvis movie at some point. Uh, I mean, what do you expect? Of course, I'm going to watch that. I love watching Romeo and Juliet as the first few English lessons. I like the 1920s aesthetic. I found a great Gatsby great. I, I mean, I found Gatsby boring, but I also found it a bit just misses. It just didn't. It just doesn't feel right. It just like why have we got like this modern poppy flair of like I understand like, for Romeo and Juliet, like even though I don't really like that 90s version that Baz Luhrmann did, I think the way it's modernized works because it's obviously set in the modern day. It's just the story is still the same, but it's just got a modern aesthetic. It's just set contemporary. It's set in contemporary society, but the story is the same. Which I mean, it has its own pitfalls, but I think that's not a bad approach. The way that Gatsby is, it's still set in the 20s, but it's got this like weird and modern poppy flair, and it just is like, what's going on? I get they're trying to go for like the whole trying to reflect the sort of hedonistic vibe of like the Roaring Twenties and all these like fancy parties and whatnot, but it I don't know, it just doesn't. It's like when you have like these random pop songs in there, and there's something about it. Just if you've seen the film, you know what I mean. It just feels very poppy and just doesn't feel right. Babylon is a film set in the 20s and has a modern aesthetic and feel, but the costumes and jazz music make it feel in the 20s in spite of the flair. I think there's a difference. I think yeah, I mean I love the Babylon score. I haven't seen Babylon properly. I do want to watch it at some point. Um but yeah, with Babylon, I think it's a bit different. Um at least from what I've seen. It doesn't I think yeah, the costumes and music, the music especially, I think it still grounds it within that time. I think it's also the direction because I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but with the Great Gatsby, with just Baz Luhrmann how he directs, he's like it's just full on, just like it's almost like making trailers. It's that frenetic and whatnot that it just doesn't feel like you're the time that it's set in. It just doesn't really work. Whereas I think Babylon is directed in a way that is a bit more restrained, at least from what I've seen and whatnot. Even if it is a bit frenetic, it's not cut and edited and shot in a way that it feels like a trailer. It still feels like a drama, just exploring the hedonism of the 1920s and Hollywood and all that sort of era. I can't wait to watch Babylon. It's yeah, I love the old family show. I love Whiplash, I love La La Land. Haven't seen First Man, but yeah, that's the vibe I get from it anyway. Um, Babylon is directed like Whiplash, so that should give you an idea of what it's like. So yeah, it's still grounded. It's like in Whiplash, there's still a style to it, but it's not. It's not like a trailer. Yeah, basically, a lot of Baz Luhrmann films feel like trailers a lot of the time because of how high energy they are. It's like there's no restraint. There's no toning down of anything, and it's not that it can't work. It's just it doesn't work for everything. It does not work for The Great Gatsby in the way that he did it, in my opinion. But yeah, um, yeah. How did we get on to talking about Barcelona again? Um, but yeah, I do want to watch the Elvis movie that you did. To be fair, because I've seen clips from it. It does. I do kind of like some of the stuff that it does. Plus, I like the Elvis music, so I was just like, no worries. Oh yeah, because because you mentioned Ewan McGregor. We were talking about Ewan McGregor, weren't we? That's right. But yeah, that might be a segment I was thinking actually for the podcast. So what's the future plans for the channel? You mentioned it in the community post. I just wanted to say it for it today. Thank you for getting back on track. I will talk about it. Don't worry. I'll go on that in a second. Um, but I was just thinking that just when that's a podcast segment I quite like to do biopics. I think that could be kind of interesting. There's a few in terms of like the classic movie section that we do on the podcast. I'd love to do a section on biopic movies. I think that'd be kind of interesting to do. And if I did, I probably would try and watch Elvis for that. Or maybe Complete Unknown. I could maybe do that. But there's that's what I'd like to do. And especially I'd love to do a musicals spotlight. Spotlight through musical films. I think I'd like to do that. Hopefully, when Wicked for Good comes out, November December time this year. I don't know whether we will spotlight Wicked for Good. We didn't spotlight the first one, but Mr. R hasn't seen Wicked yet. I will badger him into watching it. Don't worry. But whether or not whether or not we spotlight Wicked for Good, I still want to do a musical spotlight. A bit like how we didn't spotlight Mission Impossible. but in honor of it coming out, we spotlighted the Tom Cruise films. So something like that. You should watch The Wind Rises for that segment, as it's very unique biopic in animated. That's a shout, actually. In fact, I want to talk about. I do want to spotlight some more animated films. Me especially, because I was actually talking to Mr. L earlier today. We're just texting and whatnot, because he's gone and seen the new How to Train Your Dragon film, which I don't really have. I personally don't have any interest in watching. I watched the animated trilogy a few weeks ago. I really loved watching them through. Personally, I don't really have any interest in watching the remake, but if people want to watch it, they're more entitled to and whatnot. It's their choice. It's their money. They can watch what they want. And he really enjoyed it. And what he was saying to me is that he's not generally a I refuse to watch the remake of some movie. Same. I'm not really interested in watching it myself. For that reason, I don't really see. I wouldn't get anything out of it. But if people want to, they can. And what I will say as well, because I was talking to Mr. Ryan, I think it's kind of an interesting thing that you mentioned, is that he's not big on animation as not in principle. Like he still enjoys animated films, but he prefers live action films because and he enjoys having CGI in films because he likes seeing the kind of the unreal made real with like CGI. So for example, with How to Train Your Dragon, just for example, seeing Toothless interacting with real people, he enjoys that. It's the same way you enjoy watching Jurassic Park with the dinosaurs. The CGI and whatnot interacting with humans, and he mentioned as well Pacific Rim, which is one of his favorite movies. But seeing all the the kaiju's and the robots fighting and whatnot again with real humans, he enjoys seeing that, and that's a fair take that I never knew before. I never knew that before today, but I thought it was kind of interesting his take on it. It's not. I don't share that take because I love how expressive animation can be and how it can through animation you can convey the something that just can't be in live action in real life. You can convey it these kind of expressive ideas. You can I find that interesting. Still haven't seen the new Jurassic Park. Haven't decided whether I'm going to see it or not. I don't particularly care for it. I know some people I know want to watch it for Jonathan Bailey, and I keep saying, just go watch Wicked instead. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Um, yes, but, but yeah, I just thought it was kind of an interesting take from Mr. Ryan. I was just like, it was cool to discuss that earlier. Because we do talk outside of the podcast. We don't just get on the podcast, and that's the only time we ever speak. Um, I'll just watch the I'll just watch Wicked for Jonathan Bailey and the Skin for ScarJo, or any of the Avengers movies. Just watch Infinity War. Oh, wait, she died. No, that's Endgame. She dies in that. Yeah, yeah. It's been that. It's been too long to watch them. Um, I do need to watch Under the Skin as well. Yeah, yeah. Dancing Through Life is such a good song. It's so good. It's so good. And speaking of Under the Skin as well, the Jonathan Glazer obviously directed it. Zone of Interest. That was another film that I was planning on watching for the spotlight for the war movie section that we want to do in the next episode. But again, I just it's a very heavy film, one you really have to focus on, and in the heat as well. I've just not been able to. That's the thing. That's what I found. So there is value to just watching films that you don't have to think too much about and just having a good time. And then when winter months come along, that's when nights get to be fair, the Zone of Interest isn't really a war film and definitely should not be watched in this climate. I should probably clarify, the kind of thing we've gone for is unconventional war films. So obviously, I know it's not a war film as in like Saving Private Ryan war film, but we've tried to go for films that are a bit maybe explore different perspectives on war. Um, so I won't spoil like what we're picking. It's like Glorious Bastards, for example. It's that kind of ensemble thing of the different factions, kind of and it's obviously very Tarantino and whatnot. So it's more unconventional way of showing the impact of war and whatnot. And the Zone of Interest, I know it's not I know it's not a war film, but it is obviously tied to World War II. So that was why I was thinking of I wanted to kind of go for that one, but I just I couldn't. I just couldn't. Not that it was bad. It just you can't focus on that film. A film like that anyway. Um, but yeah, I will watch it at some point though because it does really interest me. The zone of interest. I'm so goddamn funny. I'm not. I'm not laughing. The Deer Hunter would be a good shout for that category, but once again, not good for this climate. Yeah, yeah. I want to watch The Deer Hunter, but it's like 3 goddamn hours, and it's like, yeah, mhm, yeah. I do again. I do want to watch it at some point. Yeah. If there are any other like sort of part three sort of for the podcast, what other segments do you think we should do? Like, kind of what kind of topics should we cover? So obviously, I mentioned the biopics, the musicals, the unconventional war films. The reason Mr. L's picked the unconventional war films is there's one film in particular that he wants to talk about, which I have watched as well for it. So, what are the sort of part threes do you think we should do? Because I'd like to hear, because I love doing them and I love like what we can come up with. But yeah. I was going to suggest a Pride movie selection for June, but I didn't say it as I don't know. I don't know. I was going to. I can't speak. You're going to select a Pride movie. Focus. I was going to suggest a Pride movie selection for June, but I didn't say it as I don't know both your sexualities, and if you're both straight, you may find it awkward to discuss. That's fair enough. I mean, as I say, I am straight. Sorry, fellas, but I get that. Yeah, and so is L. So it's just yeah. I don't know if we would mhm. I don't know if it would be as I guess respectful. I think it's two straight guys talking about you know Glenn or Glenda or something. I don't know. Um, looks like you're doing the dance step. Sounds trying to do that properly. Yeah. It's a fun idea and I'd do it, but I definitely wouldn't work for everyone. Yeah, that's the thing. I think maybe if we had, say, a guest on, who's part of the LGBT community and whatnot, possibly, I have that insight. Um, as I'd love to get a guest on a podcast at some point. But I do. That's the thing. I would want to be respectful about that. And I think we'd have to. Yeah, it's one of those it's a bit you just have to be respectful and just careful of how you approach a topic like that, especially if you're not from a group of like that. Um, I'd love to see a nostalgia part three for December because you always rewatch Cars every December. You cover three nostalgic movies. Maybe that could. I will pass this idea on to Mr. Al if he's not watching already. But that's a shout actually. I could That could be interesting. Although a lot of it would just boil down to I watched this 25 times as a kid. That's probably what all that part three would be. It's just us saying how much we watched it as a kid and how it was never not on the TV in our household. But it's a shout though. I think it's I would yeah I I wouldn't say no to it. I don't think I ever obsessively watched something as much as other people did. I realized a selection of different films and categorized them. For me, it was very much just Cars that I mainly watched on loop. Cars and Cars 2, really. And I did have other films that I'm very nostalgic to. Maybe that's actually probably a way to talk about more animated films, because I do want to get more animated films. Um, some love on the podcast. Is that animated films I want to get love, and also older films for me as well, because I like shouting out older, older films. As you know, a lot. I at least kind of pick out one oldish film for what we cover. At least when we can do. I always loved doing that. It's just stuff like On Golden Pond and then Best Years of Our Lives and The General, with Clan Bake, obviously. Yeah, the golfing quality from Best Years of Our Lives to Clan Bake. What? I was mostly just classic 2000s Pixar and DreamWorks films. Yeah, that era of 2000s animated movies is just like great. Most of my most I've read this wrong. Maybe for one of the summer months you could do a western, and if you want animated film, Rango's right there. I've been thinking about western films to be fair, because I know there's a Nick Cage western film that Mr. Alstein that he could obviously talk about. But I may be, and I'd like that as an excuse to maybe talk about some of the to introduce him to some of the older westerns that I enjoy. Sort of the John Ford films and the Sergio Leone films. The Dallas Trilogy and whatnot. Maybe I could talk about Charo or some of the Elvis westerns. Oh man, if Nick Cage is in it, it's eligible. Yeah, basically. But I think there is a Nick Cage western that he has seen. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, yeah. If we do, maybe Rango could be one that I could mention, because I do want to watch Rango at some point. Anyway, I've waffled on for a bit now, and I said I was going to get back to this as well. The Lone Ranger's also now here, nothing against it. It's not distracting me, but I'm glad you enjoyed The Lone Ranger. As I was saying though, with before I got distracted, then I meant to get back on this. So this is the 7-year live stream, and as I've said in the Queenie post, there's going to be a watch along of the Doctor episodes and whatnot. Going to have general chatter that we've had and whatnot. But I also want to use this as a way to talk about where the channel is going to be going, going forward. And I probably will upload this as maybe a cut down segment as well, maybe on the channel anniversary on the actual 17th of July. Because I've been doing YouTube. Come this Thursday, the 17th of July, 2025, I will have been doing YouTube pretty much non-stop for 7 years. And that's a long ass time. And the longest I've ever taken a break is like a month and a bit. There was that break in like 2022 when I sort of rebranded a little bit, and then you know obviously DCS Media came along eventually. But for the most part, it's pretty much just been like non-stop for 7 years, and this is not the very end right now. But what will be the foreseeable future of the channel? I'm very much in the winding down phase of the channel, essentially, and that I will be just a little bit short, kind of winding down the channel. So I kind of try and look at the channel in almost a few different phases. So you have phase one. So that's 2018, which was when it started, to late 2019, I would say. That was very much the finding my feet phase for the channel. Very much obviously, finding out what works and whatnot. I realized quite quickly that Doctor Who content was what I was doing at that time. That was what I enjoyed, Doctor Who reviews and rankings and discussion kind of videos and whatnot. And that's also around the time that, obviously, at that time it was just friends and family watching, and then eventually other people started to watch, and then that brings you into phase two of the channel, the golden years. So late 2019, all the way through late 2022, right? This was the golden period of the channel, and I'm fully aware that the ship has sailed. This was the golden era of the channel, because it was when I was uploading all the time, all the time. Like, I'd have videos, like multiple videos a day at points. Obviously, during lockdown, when you have nothing else to do, that's what you're going to do. But yeah, it was just so many videos, really kind of growing in that community. Even though I was never I was never like a big shot Doctor Who YouTuber. I was never that. But people did watch my videos. I did have, viewership from some pretty big names in the YouTube community. I had, Crispy Pro, Doctor Who Adventures, Cancel the Geeks, the likes had commented on my videos and watched them and whatnot. So I made a little dent, maybe an annoying, really obnoxious little dent that you couldn't get out, but a dent all the same. And so that was kind of the golden years. But then by 2022, obviously with the end of the Chibnall era and whatnot, it seemed like the appropriate time. I was growing up. It was coming out of the pandemic, and I realized I was growing up and I was maturing away from just Doctor Who and maturing. That's kind of when I was starting to kind of get into more film related content and whatnot. So then I would say phase three of the channel, the almost film phase or the experimental phase, 2022 to now. Yeah, 2022 to now, or late 2022 to now. So sort of 2 and a bit years, where obviously that's when the rebrand DCS Media took place. That's where I rebranded the channel. With a lot of the staples kind of changing, like the titles changing, like the music and whatnot changing. Obviously, the videos becoming much less frequent at the time, but kind of experimenting with different types of videos at this point. Stuff like all the rankings I would do, and just trying to try out different things. Kind of quality over quantity. That was kind of my mantra. And obviously the videos were getting more mature. I was tackling, stuff. I was thinking the Street Crime Desire video. I could have never done that beforehand. With some of the topics that I have to discuss in that video, you could never have done that beforehand. But over time I just realised that this is like the trying to experiment, and I hoped that this would be a kind of reinvigorate the channel, reinvigorate my love for it. But ultimately, it didn't, and that leads us to now, which is phase four, the winding down phase, which is very much going to be. This is not going to be an immediate sort of end of the channel, but very much the videos I'll be making from now on will kind of just be stuff I wanted to do for a while, but just kind of the things I've always wanted to do and kind of tying loose ends in a way. So there's videos, stuff like I'll announce a few videos that I want to do. So stuff like so my Elvis movies earlier, the King Creole video. A lot of you on the Elvis video that I did wanted a King Creole review. I will absolutely be doing that, like a film review of that, because I do want to talk about that one and kind of tie that loose end of like actually there are good Elvis films and whatnot. And I might do the odd few of the videos on Elvis movies and whatnot. That's like the smaller videos, but I'm talking about the main videos I want to do. Right. Another video, sort of on a similar topic of like musicals and whatnot. I've made no secret. This musical, Jersey Boys, probably is it my favorite? Is it my favorite musical? Possibly. Well, it's the one I'm most passionate about, and it's the one that I don't hear people talk about enough. So it's my turn. So I will be doing, hopefully at some point, a video comparing the Broadway show, or the stage show, I should say, to the Clint Eastwood film. Because I've talked about the Clint Eastwood film. I talked how I wasn't fond of it when I did it in the monthly rankings, the monthly film rankings. So I'll be talking about that video. No, not that video. I'll be talking about that film and comparing it to the show and kind of why the show works and the film doesn't. I've always wanted to do that, and I really want to. I can't wait to do it. But I'm glad I've left it to now because I have a bit more insight, just a bit more just more. I feel like I could offer a bit more with that video nowadays than I could say when I first watched the film and the show back a couple of years ago now. Because that's what sometimes you need. I think you just need a bit of time for things to set in your mind and how you appreciate stuff and whatnot. Another video that I would like to do, in the near future, and this is one that I've always wanted to do since this episode aired, right? So go back to 2020, Series 12. I've brought up Series 12 a lot in this video, but Can You Hear Me? The ending of Can You Hear Me? It's a contentious, it's a contentious scene, of course. I think, did we on the last live stream discuss that? Or am I making that up? Either way, that's a video I've always wanted to offer just my perspective on that scene, because I feel like my perspective is just I never really heard it that much. And I was always quite scared. I think you did discuss it last year. I think I might have done that, like, briefly. Um, but I've always wanted to discuss this scene, and I feel like now that I'm older, and now that I'm out of, like, a high school era, and being kind of afraid to, like, speak your mind, I'm now kind of more sure of my opinion on it, but I can articulate it better. And as well, just relaying it to my own experiences in life in that 5-ish years since the episode broadcast, because my gut instinct has always been the same with that scene. But the way that I view it and the way I would articulate it is different now because of my own experience, because of what's happened in that time frame. As a bit like the streetcar video I mentioned, it's one that I couldn't have done way back because I would have been terrified to have actually talked about something that seriously. I've been absolutely terrified of talking about it in that way. But now I'm now out of that, like, fandom space where you get ripped to shreds. I mean, who cares, like, if you find or if you find, like, the end of time overrated? Well, so what? That's not actually that controversial, in terms of, like, it's not gonna get you roasted over the coals. The "Can You Hear Me" theme is one that would be contentious, um, but you just gotta say it. If that's how you feel, I'm not going to sugarcoat that opinion, and I know I've always said that, but with this, I actually mean it. So I want to do that video, even if it's not relevant, I wanna do it. There's a few other videos as well that I want to do as well, like some maybe, like, more smaller videos. I mentioned as well I mentioned it in passing, the ranking of every Doctor's first story. As maybe it's like the final Doctor Who ranking that I do. Maybe that could be ironically the final ranking is every Doctor's first story. I think that could be quite fun, and it gives me an excuse to watch Power of the Daleks finally. Yeah, I might kind of. I'm almost thinking of this as like a sort of glory lap. It's kind of one last lap around the track in a way. It's kind of revisiting the old series. I might try and have a go at some other stuff. Maybe review the odd big finish, like the old iconic big finish story that I never reviewed, like Jubilee or Spare Parts. Maybe have a go with that. Stuff like that. Maybe review some iconic Doctor Who stories, maybe that I never got around to, but would like to perhaps doing that. Maybe I think I'll probably do one last video essay on something. I don't know what film it would be on, but I do want to do one more video essay. It says like a film, film video essay at some point. And if there's any timely videos that I want to do, I will do. So, War Between the Land and the Sea, when that comes out, I'll probably do a little review on that. Maybe I will probably. I'm thinking maybe the Christopher Nolan ranking as well. I've wanted to do that as like a director ranking. I'll probably do that next year when the Odyssey comes out. So this is stuff that I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, but it's very much like that kind of last lap. And what I want to do to retire the channel is to bring it every last place thing ranked. I'm not doing that as the last thing I ever do because that'll be a. I'm ending it on a good note. I'm not ending it on me talking about goddamn Jaws 3D or something. Yeah, but I do want to do that a bit like what Schaefer listed. I might do that as like that could be the last April Fool's video maybe because I'll still be around like when it's 2026. But the last thing that I would ever actually like to do with the channel is to kind of bring it back full circle. Because obviously, when I started, July 2018, what was the last Doctor Who episode that aired? Twice Upon a Time. What was the last series that aired? Full series, series 10. My first series of Doctor Who, actually doing full reviews on every series 10 story from the pilot to the Doctor Falls. I might do the Christmas specials in a different video because I have an idea for the Capaldi specials, so I might do that. What do you mean 2026 is next year? That feels like 4 years in the future. We're more than halfway through the 2020 decade. And yeah, Series 10 is going to be 10 years old soon. Like, probably when I get around to making these Series 10 reviews, it will probably be around 10 years to the goddamn series actually aired, which can be scary. Get this decade over with, please. Um, yeah, it's not been the best, has it, really? But things can only get better. They will. I'll get better. Don't worry. It always does. But that's the plan very much. And these series 10 reviews, they will be big things really. They will be these big. I'm gonna make a big deal of them when I do them. You know, and whatnot. But that is how I want to end the channel in a sense. And from that point, once I've done them, that's it. That's me gone. And I said gone, but like I would probably then only use the channel for any like short, like professional stuff, like short film sort of stuff. Um, but yeah, that's what's going to happen. So it's very much like the last lap, the kind of victory lap of the channel. So I need to get cracking on these videos if I want to, for me now. But yeah, that's my approach for the for going forward, and this is kind of the final phase of the channel. So um, so yeah, this live announcement feels like a press conference or like a Comic Con panel. It's like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. I should have like a timeline of everything that's going to happen, but yeah, that's what I'm doing. Because I talked about this when I was mentioning about why I started the channel. At that time, it was my soapbox because it's like nobody's going to listen to a 11-year-old annoying kid. Um, this is the time we talked, and even this is coming to an end. I miss this and wish you the best. But with yeah, it's like nobody's ever going to listen to an 11-year-old annoying kid around like Doctor Who in lockdown. It's what I needed to keep me sane, basically, just to keep me going. But I've been, I've been for, I like, I've been fortunate that I've had more of a more outlets to be creative and just to not just to be creative and like to make my own stuff, but also just to feel like I belong as such. Especially the past year, I would say that's been the case. Basically, since I left secondary school, that's and since I left secondary school in sixth form, because I was just feeling like I'd outgrown it at that point. You're like David Tennant now, he's leaving. Yeah. I'm not going to regenerate into Matt Smith. Don't worry. I mean that'd be quite the spectacle. But no, that won't be happening. That won't be happening. No regenerations this time. Sorry. But as I say, it is just you found your people in uni like Kate Mitchell. Yeah, oh Mitchell's Just Machines, that's so good. That's such a good film. Yeah. Funny enough, it's not just university though. It's also um it's just in life as well. And stuff just got better. I just had more opportunities. I've had the opportunity to, you know, lead be leads in shows, which is stuff I never would have, I never would have dreamt um would I never thought I was even capable of any of the stuff that some of the stuff I've done over the past year. It's stuff that I just would have never thought I could have done because I was always very reserved and very shy. And still to a degree am, you know. Um, I still can be a bit introverted, but I think with people I'm comfortable with, I'm just like, yeah. And I'm just a bit more comfortable with me and just kind of being more outgoing and just being more open of this is who I am, it's the stuff that I like. And yeah, I don't really need the channel as an outlet for that anymore, which is why I'm saying I want to retire it, but give it a good send off, do make these final videos. These are like the best things they could be, want to do that. He's only regenerating to Ronnie on this one. I've not spoken to Charlie, God, not that long. And to be fair, I don't speak to Ronnie that much either. No, speak to, obviously we barely do any videos. I mean, together. I want to do more stuff with him at some point, but we just, we went on separate. Ronnie, he kind of packed in the Ron Park TV stuff like a long time ago. I'm just the sad git I'm just the sad git who kept going. Yeah. Mr. L, we still stay in touch and whatnot. The podcast as well will continue as well. I don't know how long that's going to continue, but that's obviously on Mr. R's channel. That will still carry on. So that'll be right. And just to double check, there's all videos will still be available to watch even after retirement. I